Hey kids, what is up? Welcome to the latest edition of Sports Frenzy 2.0 taping here on September the 29th, 2021. This will hit tomorrow the 30th. I am the maestro, Kevin Crane.
I'm the conquistador, Dave Height.
Welcome to our knockdown, drag out, bonus plus size fall football edition, as you're going to get every week until the end of the year.
Yep, it's going to run all the way through February.
So as Dave and I were talking about before we started taping here, we've pretty much locked in our format. So our first segment is all NFL. And unfortunately, that means we have to talk about the loathsome Chicago Bears.
Oh my God, loathsome doesn't even begin to describe that performance. You know, you always talk about dredging the bottom of the barrel. I think the Bears' performance was moving the barrel and digging about 3 feet down.
Well, the thing is, Dave and I, when we can, we try to text each other during the Bears games just to discuss whatever's going on, usually a debacle.
Yeah.
Now, last week's game where they actually won, where Dalton got hurt,
on him.
I bailed on him because I wanted to watch the Raiders and the Steelers, and I told Dave, I can't put up with this anymore. I've got to watch two halfway decent, competent teams.
Right.
But then you were texting me while I was watching that game, telling me Joe Burrow's basically giving the game away, and I looked afterwards. You were right. Burrow had that stretch where he threw 3 picks.
Yeah.
And otherwise, the Bengals have looked really pretty good.
Yeah,
but they gave the Bears a win.
Yeah,
Burrow
handed it to them.
Burrow crapped the bed for about 15 minutes. Otherwise, the Bears would be 0-3 and would be, if it wasn't for the Jets, they would be the worst team in the NFL.
Hands down.
Yeah. I would take Jacksonville right now over the Bears. At this
point, I think I would too.
Because at least Jacksonville can score points.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. And
the Bears defense is trying their best
to keep this on the field for as long as they are with all the damn 3 and outs.
Right.
They're gassed.
That is all I've seen. The defense to me looks better than last year. It looks like they're in.
But the secondary is still suspect.
Well, they just don't have a secondary is the problem. They don't have the personnel back there. You know, you've got the second-year kid Johnson, and then you've got on the other side just, somebody they picked off the scrap heap.
Yeah.
The safeties are good. But, yeah, underneath, you don't have a nickel. You don't have a second outside corner. All you got is Jalen Johnson and the safeties.
Yeah.
And that leaves plenty of holes, as we've seen already, for Matthew Stafford to rip them apart. Again, Burrow. I don't know what happened to Burrow in week 2.
Pick them apart is
because, the Bengals have looked really good and competent against everybody but the Bears in that one little stretch.
Yeah. And
they only won by a field goal. They only won by a field goal when a team was basically handing them the game.
Yeah, because there is no offensive scheme. Matt Nagy does not know what the hell he's doing. There is no game plan. There's no semblance of a game plan. And he does not know how to adjust to the flow of the game.
No.
And we just eeny, meeny, miny, mo, let's go with this play here.
And I've told you.
Really?
Trick plays. I'm sick of the little trick plays. You and I both hate that stupid, not even a screen pass, that dump out, that quick out.
That quick out 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Right. That always gets him in trouble. And that's been carried over from Trestman. I mean, that for some reason, that seems like when you sign up to be the Bears head coach, you have to agree to use that play at least 3 times a game.
Minimum 3.
And it's a disaster. 99 times out of 100, it's a disaster.
Now, why aren't they using a screen? The best way to beat a pass rush with a bad offensive line are the quick little screens. Where are your damn tight ends? How much damn money do the Bears have wrapped up in tight ends?
Right.
And they don't use them.
And you mentioned a couple weeks ago when the season started, they still kept 5 on the roster.
Yeah.
They barely use Graham. Jesse James is on special teams only from what I can see.
Yeah.
And Kmet's the only one that gets any type of targets. Yeah. I'm over the fascination with the tight ends.
Yeah. Use them. You don't. That's the problem.
Yeah. So Bears fans, everybody else bear with us. Yes, we're venting, but Bears fans out there, this is just like a repetitive nightmare because Matt Nagy is bringing back all the bad memories of Mark Trestman. He reminds, I'm sure, fans of the Jets and the Dolphins, and we almost had him, Adam Gase,
Yeah, that
as
would
a
have
head
been
coach.
nightmare.
He's reminiscent of that tool.
Yeah. Every year that Nagy's been there, their points per game average has declined. That's pretty damn pathetic.
And I'm sorry.
The only bump they had in there were the last games last season when Laser was calling the plays.
Right. That's what everybody wants they want Laser to take over again.
Yeah, because obviously Nagy can't get out of his own damn way.
Yeah. And you and I, for years and years, have talked about this, and it comes down to ownership and management of the franchise.
There is no management of the franchise from the ownership.
They will not give power to any head coach. So
they won't bring in a president of football operations who actually knows football.
And I'm sorry, I had heard rumors. Maybe it was before we started doing this podcast. Maybe it was right at the beginning. But I had heard rumors that Ted Phillips was out the door.
He was supposed to have been.
And then I see today, because, of course, they bought the Arlington Park property where supposedly the new stadium's going to go.
Yeah. Why are you going to spend a crap ton of money on a brand new stadium for a shit team?
Yep. They signed a $197.2 million sale agreement. And, of course, Phillips has to be the one in charge of that and be out front on that.
Ugh.
Oh, this gives us more of an opportunity to explore our options with this property. You're going to spend almost $200 million to explore your options? You better damn well be saying we're building a stadium
in place.
You better already have somebody putting together blueprints, and you better have contractors on your speed dial
and
getting ready to start building.
You, the Bears, better be ready to pay for this themselves because the taxpayers are not going to put a cent in it with the way this team is being run.
It's been, 18 years since they refurbished Soldier Field? I want to say 2003.
Yeah.
And now they're already looking. And again, the refurbishment was just stupid.
It was
horrible. Never should have done that. The spaceship off the lake.
Bad. Completely horrendous.
So it's no surprise that this is something that I think even sane owners and sane management would want is a new football stadium.
A place that's easier to get to because let's face it, downtown Chicago on the lakefront there, limited access is a freaking traffic nightmare.
But again, everybody sees, they show Virginia McCaskey up in the owner's box every time they're on Sunday Night Football or they're on Thursday Night Football or they're on Monday night. Oh, look at poor frail old Virginia, and she's been with the Bears. The Bears have been in her family for so long. It doesn't mean she's a good owner. It doesn't mean her son is a good owner. It doesn't mean they know what they're doing when it comes to owning and running a football team.
If she had any semblance of the history of this team, if she learned anything from her dad, Papa Bear, her son would have been fired years and years ago. Phillips would have been hired because he doesn't know anything about the game. I mean, this whole thing has been an absolute disaster.
Right. And we got to wrap up with the Bears. We don't want to ramble on an entire segment about them. We could. But the thing that scares me, they lost to the Browns 26-6, got absolutely annihilated, and I don't even think the Browns played a great game. Especially the Bears defense, again, held the Browns offense down. The reason why they got 26 points is because our defense got gassed, as you said, so it was easier to move the ball.
And the field position alone.
The field position. So the Bears lose. Justin Fields is sacked 9 times, and everybody's freaking out saying, oh, look at this fantastic Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney. Again, you mentioned it. Terrible offensive line, terrible scheme, and the kid's not ready yet. I'm sorry, he is not ready.
He could not get rid of the ball. That was the problem.
It's just bringing back, again, we talked about the coaches. and the repetitive nightmare. We're seeing Mitch Trubisky all over again because they are going to ruin this kid before we can maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, get a competent head coach in to get the kid to where he needs to be. And I know we're not the only team in this situation. The New York Giants are looking at this. Third year in with Daniel Jones. They don't know what they got.
Yeah.
The Jets are sitting there going, Zach Wilson looks like a train wreck after 3 weeks because they threw him in too early.
Yeah, and they don't have any. They've got a whole new coaching staff in there. They don't know what the hell they want.
And they don't even have the option that the Bears do of having at least a Dalton or a Foles. There's nobody behind Zach Wilson. He's stuck.
Yeah.
The 49ers did this right.
So the Jets are going to ruin another quarterback.
Right, just like the Bears. You notice the pattern with the certain teams that are always the bottom feeders, that always stink. And this is what they do. They churn up these young quarterbacks, spit them out, destroy them, so they have no hope of ever reclaiming any semblance of a career. And then they go right back in and do it to another one. Yep. And then again and again and again. All right. Other NFL news.
Your Buccaneers.
We knew this
added in their secondary. It's official.
Oh, yeah.
Your favorite Richard Sherman is there.
Interesting. Real quick. Don't want to spend a ton of time on it. You know I don't like Richard Sherman. So I am not a big fan of this signing. They were able to bring in Antonio Brown and keep him calm and get him out of trouble. So hopefully Richard Sherman will bow to the GOAT, keep his goddamn arrogant mouth shut, and do what he's told when he's told to do it. Sorry.
His job.
That's not a slave mentality. That's a football team mentality. You do what you're told. It's military. Football is basically a military analogy. Yeah. You know, you treat a football team like a group of guys in the military. You do what you do when you're told to do it, how you're told by the head coach.
Yeah. And your leaders on the field. Because if you're not where you're supposed to be, you lose.
But the thing with Richard Sherman, hopefully, again, he toes the line and doesn't get all arrogant and pompous like he is prone to do. I find it funny that he has the legal troubles that he's dealing with the domestic issue. You know, they've got it all on video, all on video.
It's all there. He's able to play.
But Deshaun Watson is still out in football limbo.
Yeah, they will not play him. At this point, what the hell's the difference?
Right. Now, I did hear today that because the contract extension, for some reason, I guess doesn't kick in till next year, the way they wrote it out when they gave it to him. So he's not counting, the $40 million a year?
Okay, so it's his original rookie
deal. So he's only costing about 10, is what I heard today.
All right, that's more tolerable.
Not quite the financial hit, so they're looking at that $10 million as, we'll take the $10 million hit instead of the PR nightmare.
Right. Okay, there you go.
But still, I would be raising holy hell if I was him. Why can't I play football? Are you going to suspend me or are you not going to suspend me?
What are you doing?
And now Richard Sherman signing on with the Buccaneers would be a perfect example, a perfect case study for him and his attorneys, his representation to go to the NFL and say, you make a decision now. You're letting Richard Sherman play, but you won't let me play. Well, unofficially, quote unquote.
Right. Let's go make a decision.
This is almost like we all heard Colin Kaepernick whining and bitching and pissing and moaning about being blackballed. That's what's happening with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
But, you know, the righteous indignation, right, it's different situation, but still, he's basically just being pushed to the side and ignored without any type of official stance or any kind of suspension or punishment being waylaid on him.
Yeah. And no charges have been filed.
Exactly. So
that's what kills me on that.
And they definitely need the help in the secondary. You saw it here this past weekend as they got beat by the Rams 34-24, which you and I both called.
Yep.
Which we both saw coming. And that was basically what I expected. That game basically played out exactly as I expected it to. The Bucs were able to put up some points, but I think their defense is overrated. And of course now with The
Oh,
Bucks.
the Bucks, yeah. The
The
Bucks
Bucks-
were overrated.
The Bucks
on
have let up a ton of yards and a ton of points in all 3 games that they've played.
but their offense has been able to carry them,
Right,
except
Brady.
up against a top-notch defense.
And it's Brady. It's Brady and those receivers
Yeah.
because they don't have a running game. Fournette is not doing anything. Ronald Jones III can't get on the field. So basically, it's Brady throwing the ball 40, 50 times a game.
Yeah. And how's his arm going to hold up doing that?
And now we don't know how Gronk's going to be this week after taking a shot to the ribs.
Yeah.
He lost Scotty Miller, who was his go-to guy when Godwin or Evans or Brown was out this week, so Scotty Miller filled in. Now you've lost the depth there. I still think the Bucks will be a force to be reckoned with, but the Rams are scary.
They are. They finally got a quarterback.
Stafford
has a
are a
team
perfect
around
fit.
him.
They are a perfect fit.
They are.
You can tell McVay running up and down the sidelines like a giddy child. He's ecstatic. He knows this year is the year they have got to do it.
Yeah, the window is there.
Right. And of course, the funny thing is now the Patriots go up to Foxborough to play the Patriots this coming Sunday. And I guess Tom Brady's dad got on a radio station up there. I don't know if it was WEEI, whatever, I think it was the main Patriot station up there up in Boston. And basically, he's talking trash about Belichick and the Patriots, saying, of course.
That's never a good thing to do.
So then they get Tom Jr. They get him on a press conference later, and he has a prepared statement. No, it's his podcast. Sorry. It was on his podcast with Larry Fitzgerald, and he says, I have a prepared statement about this. And he basically, summarizing it, it was hysterical. If you can listen to the whole thing, listen to it. But he basically, in the end, says, if my father doesn't stop talking, I am going to put him into a home against his will. It's classic, awesome. Kids. You got to look it up and listen to it. We can't do it justice here.
That's awesome.
It's about 30, 35 seconds of pure goat gold is what it is.
Nice. Brady is good when he's doing that stuff.
Yes, he is.
All right. You kind of got to go the other end. I think the bell has tolled on Big Ben.
Yeah, everybody's saying he looks shot. He's a shot fighter.
He's done.
Yeah.
The Steelers really have to make a decision.
Yeah, and this would have been probably the year for them to make a move. That's the one thing. You got to give the Bears some semblance of credit in that they made the bold move again and moved up to get a quarterback. The Steelers would have been smart to do that this year. They really would have been smart.
Yeah, they should not have renegotiated and brought him back and all of that.
Well, plus you don't have any, and I don't know how he would have handled having to groom his protege. We've seen how that's turned into a disaster in places like Green Bay.
Over and over again.
But they should have had a plan in place this past draft to get his successor in. Because I'm sorry, the guys he's got behind him, they're not going to cut it. You're talking about, what, Duck Hodges?
No. Not good.
And I can't remember his name, the one that got clocked with the helmet by Myles Garrett.
Oh, yeah.
He is not, everybody knows he is not starting quarterback material. They should have had a plan in place.
And they failed again.
Again, I'll go back to the 49ers. I mentioned them earlier. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They bring in Trey Lance, use a high pick on him.
High pick.
But then they say, okay, we're going with Garoppolo for a year.
Jimmy G is our guy.
Right.
Jimmy G, he sat behind the GOAT.
Right. Until he got his chance.
And now he knows the offense. We're going to let Lance sit behind him and learn how to do all of this.
Right.
Brilliant.
And then the Patriots are a little bit different situation. Mac Jones had to be a better option than a broken down Cam Newton, because we mentioned, remember, kids, at the start of the season when they cut him, we said after week 2, teams can sign him without having to take on the contract. Well, guess what? We're going into week 4. Nobody's taking a sniff of Cam Newton.
And there's some injuries out there that teams, if he was worth anything, would have picked him up.
Right. Right, and it would be on the cheap, so you can't use money as an excuse.
No. Ugh.
And then, of course, now the TV news that frustrates me beyond all belief. The NFL never learns. The NFL seems to want to shoot itself in the foot.
Over and over.
This year now, they are going to move the last game of the wild card round to Monday night.
No.
So now we're going to have a Monday night playoff
team
game.
That's going to be screwed out of week of practice going into the next week.
Exactly.
Where does that make any sense?
Exactly. There is one team, they're going to have to move them to Sunday for the following week, but they're
screwed
at
on
least
a day.
one day of practice. Yeah. But again, we got to make more money. And plus, you're screwing your fans because not only do you have to stay up Sunday night to watch a playoff game,
you got to stay up Monday night.
So you got to have two nights of staying up late and being beat tired for work the next day.
No.
Oh, because
Stupid.
Because of course they don't want to play that early Saturday game because the ratings aren't as good. Even though it works out for pretty much everybody except the money-hungry NFL.
Bad.
The fans love. I'm sorry. I'm not just speaking for me. I know the fans would prefer to sit at home Saturday from 1 o'clock until midnight watching 3 games instead of now having to worry about watching the first round over 3 nights.
Yeah, that's absolutely stupid.
And your favorite player, Dave, you called it, as you always do. The number one fantasy pick. The number one fantasy pick injured again. Christian McCaffrey out.
I told you he wasn't going to make the full season.
Yep, and that's why I was glad not to have the number 1 pick in fantasy because, of course, my guy, Dalvin Cook, who I got number 2, isn't much better.
There you go.
So
it's crazy. And then those poor hapless Lions.
Justin Tucker, I'll tell you what, Justin Tucker is the greatest kicker of all time.
He is. But come on.
I know.
That play clock was so far sitting at 0 that never should have been allowed to take place.
It was a full 2 to 3 seconds. Full 2 to 3
I know.
seconds.
Usually you got that second to half second. But this was sitting there and sitting there and sitting there at 0, and they didn't flag it. That's unacceptable.
No, I agree. Yeah,
completely unacceptable.
I agree. If you're going to play Law and Order with the NFL here, I agree 100%. But I don't want to take away the fact that Justin Tucker hit that field goal. Record-setting field goal to win a game.
Yeah. But how many ways can the Lions lose?
And we're going to get to them in a second.
And how many different ways can they be screwed over by the officials?
Right. They're 0-3, and I think they're a damn good 0-3 team. I think Dan Campbell has actually done a pretty good job with what he's got.
Team going in the right
direction. The Bears at least have some semblance of a decent team in terms of personnel. Lions have nobody. And Campbell's got them at least being competitive every week.
Going to bite their knees on the way up and on the way down.
Real quick, your Dolphins, unfortunately, they held in there, played a really tough, good game.
Brissett played a hell of a lot better than expected.
Lost in overtime to Vegas.
Vegas is, they are flirting
Chucky
with
might
disaster.
finally be earning his contract.
They are flirting with disaster week in and week out, man.
I know. And they're in trouble because and we know Derek Carr, we're talking about Christian McCaffrey. Derek Carr has a propensity to get hurt. And Mariota's already dinged up.
How the hell is Mariota still on a freaking team?
Hey, I'd take him over Andy Dalton. Let's put it that way.
No, I would not.
All right, how about this? I'm going to go negative here for a second, and then we're going to we only got a couple pro picks to go through, so we can do those within a couple minutes. How the hell does Josh Gordon get another chance in the NFL?
Thank you. That was right there, next topic.
6 suspensions, 5 of them for substance abuse, and who gives him yet another chance? Number 1, the NFL shouldn't have let him come back. And number 2, I hate
effing Reed.
I am tired of the Kansas City Chiefs. They have now become the most hated, unlikable team in football. I don't care about Patrick Mahomes and all his State Farm commercials. And now, of course, I'm sorry. If he had a really legitimate health issue, I apologize. But I find it really convenient that Andy Reid, I don't feel good after getting my ass handed to me by the Chargers. I have to go to the hospital. I'm dehydrated.
Yeah.
And then they give Josh Gordon the irony.
I
A
know it.
5-time substance abuse suspended player, and his son is still the scumbag of the world, ruined a young girl's life for substance abuse.
And here you go again.
But he's going to say, well, I'm going to give Josh Gordon a chance just like my son should get a chance.
How many chances?
Cheeseburger-eating asshole. I hate him. He's another one that's just playing us. He's like Naomi Osaka. He plays us. He plays us into I'm the jolly old guy you can't help but sit down and have a beer with.
Yeah, I can avoid.
He's an asshole. He's an evil, deceitful asshole.
Yes. And speaking of the Chiefs, 4 damn turnovers. They are not looking good right now.
Defense doesn't look good at all.
Defense doesn't look good. Offense is looking really freaking shaky. All right. On to our picks.
All right. For Sunday, October the 3rd. Washington at the Falcons. Got 6 of our 8 panelists have their picks in. Right now we are 4-2 on this one in favor of the Falcons. I really came into the season with higher hopes for Washington, but
they're crap in the bed. They just don't look good. That defense is not there.
And I think this Falcons win this past weekend will at least give them a little bit of juice to get them through here for a little while.
Yeah.
Lions at Bears.
I wanted to go with the Lions.
We're split 3-3 on this.
I wanted to take the Lions, but I couldn't because they're the Lions. And they always find a way to lose, even to a hapless Bears team.
This is one of those ones where we're talking about my litmus test for these picks when I get down to it. I can't see the Bears at 2-2 more than I got to see the Lions at least at 1-3. They're not that bad.
They're not.
What I've seen.
But they have a propensity to lose. That's their culture.
All right. This one I thought when I put it on the slate would be a little bit easier. You know, and it is. But the 3-0 Panthers at the 2-1 Cowboys, this looks like this could end up being a travesty. I mean, I think the Panthers are vastly overrated, and the Cowboys are starting to look really good. I hate to say that, but they really are.
Yeah, the Cowboys are stepping it up, and the Panthers don't have their stud.
Right. We just talked about that. They lost McCaffrey, so only Bill right now is taking the Panthers. Everybody else, Cowboys. I'm on an island. Browns at Vikings. I mentioned earlier, I don't think the Browns were overly impressive against the Bears. I think the Vikings were more impressive beating up on Seattle, even though that was a home game for them. But this is a home game again.
Yeah, but
I know it's Kirk Cousins. You don't know what you're getting week to week with Kirk Cousins.
Exactly.
But I don't trust Baker Mayfield yet. I don't trust OBJ. If they can shut down Hunt and Chubb, the Vikings can win this game. I got the Vikings. Everybody else, Cleveland. Real quick here as we run out of time. Big game. Cardinals at the Rams. Everybody's taking the Rams. Again, they're a juggernaut right now. They're both undefeated, but the Rams look flawless right now.
Yeah. 49ers and the Seahawks. I am going on Seahawk Island. I just don't see them losing again.
And I told you I was real close on this. I'm going with San Francisco just because the last 2 weeks the Seahawks have not impressed me. They've burned me twice. They never should have lost that Titans game. And to get beat by a mediocre Minnesota team either tells me Minnesota's not as bad as I thought, or the Seahawks are worse than I thought.
Yeah, maybe they overlooked them. I don't know.
Very cautiously taking the 49ers. Everybody but you is as well. Ravens at Broncos. I can't believe somebody's actually taken the Broncos. Bill's been going out on a limb a lot this year so far.
So
the Ravens are the better team. The Broncos are like the Panthers, 3-0, but they are a sham.
Yeah.
Steelers at Packers. You mentioned it.
Steelers are shot.
Big Ben is shot. Everybody's taking the Packers. Everybody's taking the Buccaneers up in Foxborough. And then the Monday night game on the 4th. Really good game. Raiders at Chargers.
It's a split.
Yeah, we're 3-3 right now. You and I are taking the Chargers. They're at home.
That's the edge.
That's the edge I think they need.
Yeah.
All right. NCAA football coming up next, kids. Stay with us. We will be right back here on Sports Frenzy 2.0.
In a world of politically correct sports coverage, 2 individuals stand alone as the last bastion of sanity.
the Maestro, and the Conquistador star in Sports Frenzy 2.0, the podcast.
Available on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, and Castbox.
Hey everybody, it's Sports Frenzy 2.0 coming at you here, recording September 29th to air on tomorrow the 30th. I'm the Conquistador Dave Height.
And I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane.
And we're getting ready here with segment 2 to continue our football talk with NCAA.
That's right, and get used to it. For the rest of the year, this is what you're getting. NFL segment 1, NCAA segment 2, every stinking freaking week. Now, I guess we got to start off with the local team.
Yep. Notre Dame, Wisconsin recap from Soldier Field. Once again, Notre Dame looked like hell offensively in the first half. Could not do anything. The defense is finally, the new scheme seems to really be starting to take hold, because the defense carried them through that first half. Offensively, they were just so inept. But second half, it really opened up and broke open. It was at 41-13 was the final.
Over number 18, Wisconsin, who usually does not lose like this early in the season. Now, this is twice that they have really crapped the bed. So now you got to wonder about Wisconsin's future. They've already lost 2. They are definitely out of the playoffs. No contention chance for them.
No, not even close.
And, of course, everything. And I know I'm going to sound like I do every year with Notre Dame. I'm not a Notre Dame fan. But everything is falling their way yet again. Everything is falling. If they get through Cincinnati this week, this is it. This is the one chance, I think, that somebody's got to knock them off, because everybody was talking about 2 weeks ago, oh, here comes the tough stretch. Here comes the really tough stretch for Notre Dame. Wisconsin doesn't look nearly as good as everybody thought.
No,
now you got Cincinnati. USC looks terrible now. North Carolina looks terrible now. So who's going to beat them if Cincinnati doesn't? Nobody. Nobody's going to beat them. They're going to run the table.
They're going to
get in the playoffs.
If they have struggled, though, first halves and the first few games, they have not looked good. But somehow they're finding a way to pull it off.
But they are getting the luck of the Irish. No, it seems like
well
this happens
coached.
Every year.
Kelly knows how to make adjustments.
But I'm not even looking at the Irish. I'm looking at everything around the Irish and how everything is falling in place for them. And Clemson's falling apart.
Crap the bed again.
Right.
They're done.
The Hurricanes, of course, in the ACC, because Notre Dame is a quote-unquote unofficial member of the ACC.
Right.
Notre Dame is technically the only ACC team that's any good right now. I mean, the rest of
them are looking like
Miami Hurricanes just embarrassed themselves. I don't know how you embarrass yourself winning 69-0,
but they did
because of who they played.
Right,
and it's not just the Hurricanes. Alabama does this. A lot of the SEC teams do this.
Put the cupcakes on the schedule.
Miami beat up on Central Connecticut this past weekend. That game should not happen.
No, I'm sorry. Power 5 conferences need to play Power 5 conference teams. That's it. You can't be going down Division 2, Division 3, scraping the bottom.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as say Power 5, but Division 1. Division 1 schools.
Keep it within Division 1.
Right.
There you go.
Now Notre Dame, of course, just announced that in 2022, of course, the Wisconsin game at Soldier Field was part of the Shamrock Series. So 2022, they will be taking on BYU in Las Vegas.
Road trip, maybe. Who knows?
It's too bad. It's too bad this game isn't happening this year. As I mentioned, BYU this year looks great.
They do.
Now watch, next year they will be
They
awful.
will be awful.
And it'll fall again, all right in Notre Dame's lap.
So,
But
but
as
then you've got some of the other teams out there. Oregon rolls on, being up top.
Right.
Oklahoma struggling offensively. They are not looking all that great as they want to go into the SEC.
There are a lot of teams, and this has been a big talking point on a lot of the college football shows, that transfers are creating a lot of parity right now. And a lot of these big name schools, we mentioned Clemson, who got beat for the second time this past weekend at the hands of NC State. One of the primary ones we're looking at here, Ohio State, you mentioned Oklahoma. Alabama, now a lot of people gave them grief for barely getting by Florida, but Florida's a good
damn
team.
good team.
I'm not going to rip on Alabama for barely beating Florida. You know, that's a two teams that could technically be in the Final Four. Now, of course, I don't see how 3 SEC teams are going to make it.
No.
Georgia, I don't see anybody knocking off Georgia except for Alabama. And
Arkansas is a damn good.
They'll get beat somewhere, though.
I
agree with you,
will.
but and that was one of the teams.
And that could come down towards the end of the season.
And that was one of the teams that these guys were bringing up on these shows, saying Arkansas is one of these teams benefiting from all these transfers. You know,
that, and they're a senior-heavy team this year because a lot of the guys came back buying into the coach.
But yeah, Oregon is right now looking like the sole hope for the Pac-12 in terms of getting in the playoffs.
Everybody else is looking,
Yep. And of course, Lane Kiffin, right after we finished taping last week, talking about transfers, had to get in his little shot at Alabama.
Yeah.
Talking about how they cherry-pick their transfers, and that's why year after year after year, they are the perennial favorite to win the national title, like having Lane Kiffin and Mike Leach in the SEC.
It's fun.
At Ole Miss and Mississippi State.
It adds a little drama and controversy.
And of course, this is what you're going to see now with the consolidation of these, you know, Oklahoma, Texas moving to the SEC as the Power Five get more powerful and it becomes more of a tight cluster.
Money grab.
You're going to see all the big name coaches go into the Power Five.
Yeah.
Gravitating especially, I think, to the SEC. Because, again, we've already only got one team left in the Pac-12 that really is getting any kind of recognition. Everybody's looking at the Big Ten going, okay, maybe Ohio State can get their ducks in a row. Iowa's looking good for some reason. I don't see that lasting.
How are Iowa and Penn State winning like they are?
That's the thing. And is Michigan going to last?
Michigan State, we all know.
No, I think if Harbaugh is going to put a Michigan team even close to getting in the playoffs, it's this year. If he doesn't do it this year, then I really think the pressure amps up on him to either make massive changes in that program or go back to the pros. Go back to the pros. And somebody will take him in the pros.
Yeah, he's been gone long enough. He won't be considered a retread.
Right.
So, and then you got to look coming out of the Big 12, high hopes for Iowa State, and they botched another one.
Well, I got that one last week. Baylor is bouncing off a really, really awful year last year, and they're starting to make some noise. But you're right. Iowa State, again, disappoints after Iowa beat them earlier this year.
Yep.
Now Baylor beats them. They were supposed to be, one of those teams to challenge Oklahoma.
Yeah, and they're bye-bye.
Right. And, of course, we all know the drama and everything going on behind the scenes there.
Texas, Oklahoma moving
with the
to
Big
the
12.
SEC.
Right. Now, of course, you got all the BYU and the Houston coming in, Cincinnati coming in. That's all getting reconfigured.
And that's pushing the expansion back, the expansion of the playoffs, because they were thinking maybe they could have had something figured out this year and have the expanded playoffs in play for 2023. Now, with all this realignment, it's getting too complicated. How many teams, blah, 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 from each conference. So now it's not looking like it's going to happen until after 2026.
Yeah. And you wonder
what the reports are.
You wonder if somebody, some faction, some group behind the scenes won't figure out a way to make it happen sooner. I understand what you're saying, because this whole realignment thing, I can see how that could screw everything up. But there's so much money sitting out there.
There is, and that's the freaking problem with college football is all the damn money sitting out there.
Yeah, I wonder how Dr. Pepper feels now, putting Clemson's quarterback in all their ads after he has looked brutally bad here the first month of the season. Brutally bad. So good for him. He's getting paid. But the way he's playing, he better take the money now because he's not looking like a pro prospect.
Yeah, not even close.
And you almost got to wonder if now Trevor Lawrence needs time. He's looked a little rough early on, but he needs time. What's going to happen with him is he's looking like he's going to be the Troy Aikman, Peyton Manning model, where they're just throwing him to the wolves. He's going to throw 35 picks this year. And everybody's going to rip him to shreds, and then he'll come out next year and probably be better and throw a few more TDs and picks. And by year 3, they'll have that team built up around him. If Urban Meyer,
sticks with it,
he doesn't have health issues, quote unquote, like he always seems to.
Yeah.
When the going gets tough, he'll be fine. That's why I don't think anybody's panicking about him like they are about Justin Fields and Zach Wilson. Because it looks like there's something there.
Yeah. Well, Meyer at least has more of a track record of development, even if it is in college. Whereas you don't see anything out of Nagy's crew to develop anybody in Chicago. And you sure as hell have never seen any of that coming out of the Jets.
No, but again, you make a great point. The transition from college to the pros, that might really help Urban Meyer being there for Trevor Lawrence and those younger players. But yeah, I'm going back to Ugalalele. What's his name? DJ Ugalalele. I know I'm butchering his name, but if Trevor Lawrence does not grow over the next year or two, does not come out to be the surefire number one greatest quarterback picked at number one in the last 10 years that we were all told he was supposed to be, then I think on top of the performance factor, this kid is not getting drafted anywhere close to a first or second round pick.
No, he's going to be a late round.
Mid to late round pick at best.
At best. I can see him dropping 2 or 3.
They'll start looking not only at his talent, but is Dabo Swinney's program not what it used to be?
Yeah.
And Deshaun Watson not playing is not helping either.
No, that hurts big time as well.
Because that's your succession right there. Watson to Lawrence to DJ.
And that's things are not looking
and if
too
you
can't
good there. You can't show the world that Watson, he's not playing. You can't show the world that, okay, he is definitely the next great thing. And then Lawrence, for some reason, he doesn't become the next great thing. Then they start to question the Clemson program.
Now, can you start doing that with Oklahoma?
Yes, definitely. Because we talked about this in the last segment a little bit, touched on it. We've got time here.
Baker Mayfield. Not fully sold on
We've got Baker Mayfield.
Jalen Hurts transferred from Bama.
Right.
And now Rattler does not look all that good.
Exactly. And I've always said with quarterbacks, it is a crapshoot. I don't think it really matters what program you come from. It matters when you can get the guy. If your NFL program is stable enough, again, that's why I think Mac Jones will be fine.
Mac Jones will be fine because Belichick is smart enough to tweak his offense to his quarterback's talents.
Right.
Nagy is such an egomaniac moron. He's trying to force his stupid-ass, incredibly complicated offense with all the trick bullshit onto all of his quarterbacks.
Right.
He will not adapt. He's too damn stupid and stubborn.
Right. And he'll end up going down as the man who ruined both Mitch Trubisky and possibly Justin Fields. And in my book, I know we're in the NFL, but we're kind of dealing with college quarterbacks too.
Yeah.
That will make him the worst Bears coach of all time.
Yeah, because you've got a questionable possible starter coming out of college who showed some potential. You had one of the top quarterbacks in a while coming out of
a
the Big
major
Ten.
program. Major program.
Yeah.
Because that's not what you're looking at. You're looking at the Clemson guys, the Ohio State guys, the Alabama guys.
The guys who show they have success and can run an offense.
But again, that's why I'm saying I don't think it matters so much where you get the quarterback from as if he fits your coach, your system, and then maybe
or can
your
you
scouts
fit your
actually
system to him.
And your scouts actually do what they're supposed to do, and they find an intangible or something that this kid might have, like Joe Flacco out of Delaware.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you have to have a GM who's actually smart enough to pick up pieces to fit around everything.
Right. And I'm not. You and I have never been the biggest Joe Flacco fans in the world.
No.
But you can't deny the guy was worth where he was drafted by the Ravens. He got them a Super Bowl.
Yep.
Now maybe he should never have gotten the max mega deal he got.
No, that was
but he bet on himself.
That was the first stupid money deal we've seen.
But he bet on himself and he won.
He won.
Right. But
and
again,
he crapped the bed since.
He came out of Delaware.
Yeah.
That's so that's what we're talking about here, trying to tie the NFL quarterbacks into their college roots and where they come from. It just all is a jumbled mess. You've just got to hit on the right guy at the right time. And as Dave just pointed out, the Bears are going to end up screwing this up twice with two vastly different prospects. Mitch Trubisky came out of a okay Power 5 team in North Carolina, but he'd only been a starter for 1 year.
Yep.
Justin Fields, one of the highest touted prospects at quarterback out of the last 5 years, just happened to come out in a class where there were 5
decent,
really good prospects. And he was 4 out of those 5. And the Bears, again, I'll give Pace a little bit of credit for showing some balls, jumping up and getting him. But again, now it's on the coach and the system, and it's not in place. And this kid is getting pummeled 3 weeks into his career.
Yeah, because they don't know what the hell they're doing.
All right, kids, let's move on to our college picks.
Did you want to touch on Miami and Mr. Diaz and that whole admin no support?
We can.
I don't think it's worthwhile because Miami is a football school.
Yeah, Dave's referring to the speculation that's been coming out over the last day or two. There's rumors and rumblings that there's people behind the scenes in Miami's admin, in their athletic department, who are not supporting the football team. And Manny Diaz, the head coach, is now trying to find excuses, in my opinion, for why he's turning into yet another miserable failure as a Miami head coach. And now that he's saying that the Miami administration and the athletic department do not support the football program. And as Dave just alluded to, it's barely worth mentioning, because if you think the Miami Hurricanes are not being pushed as a football program by the U, you're out of your goddamn mind. That'd be like Texas saying they don't care about their football program, or Oklahoma saying they don't care about their, or Notre Dame saying they don't care about their football program. That's a load of shit. Exactly. And that's Manny Diaz and maybe somebody he's friends with behind the scenes, spreading rumors, spreading lies.
Trying to make himself look a little bit better. Well, it's not all my fault if we don't have blah, blah, blah. No, Manny Diaz is an awful coach.
Yes, and I will admit, and I have been suckered in by the last 2 Miami head coaches. I will admit, I loved Mark Richt getting brought in, and he couldn't pull it off.
You got Richt again.
And then Manny Diaz was about ready to head up north and take over program up there. I think he was going to take over Temple or Rutgers, one of those two. Now Rutgers is praising the football gods now that they got Greg Schiano back.
Yeah, no kidding.
Because Rutgers will be a top 25 team next year, kids. Mark it down. That man should be the Canes head coach.
Schiano is a very good head coach.
He had that one little scandal that never materialized, never became anything, but it derailed his career for 2 or 3 years, which was garbage.
Yeah, absolute crap.
But Manny Diaz, all he's doing now is covering his tracks. It's time. The Miami football alumni are very, very involved and very vocal. Michael Irving.
Passionate.
Yes, Michael Irving, guys like that are involved and care deeply about the future of this program. So for Manny Diaz to come out and say Miami doesn't care about football is ridiculous, and it's going to get him pushed out the door that much quicker.
Yep, exactly.
So there.
You can only
You said it wasn't
hope.
worth talking about, and I give you 5 minutes.
There you go. I knew you felt strongly about that.
You know I do. That's my team.
All right. Picks.
Picks. Friday, October the 1st, a big one. In my opinion, even though right now out of the six panelists out of the 8 we've got have got their picks in, everybody's taking Iowa. But Maryland is one of those teams.
They're that sneaky. You don't know.
They're not quite top 25 level, but they're always floating out there. They always have a couple big wins in them every year.
And this, as we said, we don't know how Iowa's doing it. I went back and forth on this one.
I did too.
Don't like Maryland's. I just, something about Maryland I don't like, but this could be that game that Iowa craps the bet on.
Right. And the point spread is not very high. It's only 3.5.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Iowa on the road is still the favorite, so that's almost like a 6.5 point favorite when you consider they get 3 for being at home.
Right.
Maryland does. But I agree with you. This could be one that we all lose.
Yeah.
I could see us all losing.
I would not be surprised.
This is a huge game for Jim. Harbaugh has got to keep this train rolling for Michigan, as we talked about earlier. Otherwise, he's going to be in trouble, just like Manny Diaz down in Coral Gables.
Michigan and at Wisconsin. This one, Wisconsin's licking their wounds.
They did not look good against Notre Dame.
They did not look good at all, especially the second half.
But they're at home. Do they play with some fire? Do they play with some intensity? Or the fact that they've already been knocked out this early from the playoff picture, does it just decimate them in terms of their spirit?
Yeah, that's going to be the big question. And that's why Harbaugh has to have that Michigan team going. But out of what the picks we have, everybody's taking Michigan except for the elder statesman so far.
Yep. And now, of course, under new rules, all these point spreads are well under 10 points. So that's probably why our percentages are down.
Yeah, we don't have the gimme picks.
Yeah, well, no gimme picks anymore. So, again, this is one it would not shock me if Wisconsin won this.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But I think if Michigan loses this game, Harbaugh is in trouble.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh at Georgia Tech. I think you're looking at two teams here that one of these two, if they win this game, are going to end up being – we talked about how bad the ACC is this year. The winner of this game could end up being up there close to contending for the ACC championship game.
Yeah, could very well be. And another one that could go either way.
And we're split.
It's
3-3 right now.
Yep. I took Pittsburgh.
I just like Georgia Tech. I like the way they're playing. I've always liked their run-first mentality. They're more of a grinded-out type team. You know, I got a gut feeling. I know Pitt is favored by 3.5, but that line has been coming down. So a lot of people are starting to jump on the Tech bandwagon with me.
Yeah, maybe it's just a money move.
Yeah. Texas at TCU. Of course, Texas underperforming again this year. And it's not going to get any better when they go to the SEC.
No, it's that still kills me. But
TCU is another team like Maryland. They're like Maryland.
They're always solid.
You're going to get a couple big wins from them during the year.
But you're going to get the losses that they shouldn't.
Right. I think Texas is going to try to bounce back here and get themselves back in the top 25.
I agree with you. But we're split.
We're 4-2.
Not quite. 4-2. So
Sam and Nick are going TCU.
Yeah.
I keep somehow getting Louisville on the slate. I think if I look back here over the last month and a half, Louisville will probably be the team I've put on the slate most because their lines are always close. You know, they're not projected to get blown out. They're not projected to blow anybody out. They're one of those teams in transition.
Yeah.
On the rise, up and comers. And speaking of which, Wake Forest has broken into the top 25. They're number 24.
They've been playing halfway decent. I don't have any faith in Louisville at this point, which is why I went with Wake.
And I'm on an island right now. I'm the only one of the picks we've got taking Louisville. I think, like I said, they're on the rise. I like the way the program, when I see them on TV, going all the way back, I think, to the opener last year. They lost, but they showed me something. They at least look like they're well coached. Wake Forest. I don't believe in Wake Forest. So the big games: number 7 Cincinnati at number 9 Notre Dame.
Big Blue W is on an island picking
Again.
Cincinnati.
Yep. Everybody else taking Notre Dame, of course. I have already made my point about Notre Dame. I think everything's falling their way this year. That being said, go Cincy! Go Cincy! Not only because I don't like
blow everything up.
I want them to get in the Final Four and get that slot in the playoffs. That's why I'm rooting for them more than anything else. I'm not being a bitter anti-Notre Dame person.
No, it's that mid-level team,
right,
to break through finally.
Right. And
I get it.
They're the one that's got the best shot.
I get it.
Texas Tech at West Virginia. Again, Bill on an island by himself with Texas Tech. Texas Tech, again, year after year, no defense. No defense.
No defense at all. And their offense it's not quite what it has been in the past at this point.
Yeah, and I don't hold me to this, but I think when they played Texas recently, they let up 70.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give me West Virginia. Everybody but Bill are taking the Mountaineers.
Yep.
Baylor, number 21 at number 19, Oklahoma State. Oh, my God, this is about the time where Gundy chokes, and I don't know how to handle this.
You know, that's why I took Baylor. Because this is that game. This is
I know. That's what I'm worried about. I'm holding out for one more week. As much as we
love Gundy in Oklahoma State, there's 1 or 2 games a year.
Yeah, I know. He's about ready. It's coming. It's coming.
This is that. I have the feeling that this is that one. But now that I see the Big Blue W also took Baylor, I have less confidence in that pick.
Everybody else takes Oklahoma State, but I'm 100% with Dave. This could be the one where Gundy, he craps the bed. Number 22, Auburn at LSU. I don't even understand the love for Auburn in this game. I don't
either. How are they still in the top 25?
I know LSU got beat by UCLA on the West Coast, but otherwise they're pretty solid. They're not maybe a top 8 or 9 team this year, but they're top 15.
Yeah, they're better than Auburn, and they're playing.
But we're split.
We're split.
You and me and Sam are taking LSU. Everybody else of the other 3 panelists taking Auburn. Washington and Oregon State, very intriguing matchup. Again, the Pac-12 very weak this year.
Washington has declined so much.
I know. And my initial thought when I saw that game was I almost penciled in Washington.
But
I
Peterson is not there anymore.
Exactly. I have to remember the regime change. Washington is not as strong as they were the previous 10 years.
Right.
Oregon State looks like they might have something going on. Maybe they're a team on the rise like a Louisville. So I'm with you. Actually, Nick is the only one taking Washington. Everybody else taking Oregon State.
Yep.
Finally, Arizona State. Herm at number 20, UCLA. Mr. Kelly. So you've got 2 former NFL coaches going at it in the Pac-12 again, as we've talked about. Yep. Not as strong as they should be, but and we're all so far taking UCLA.
Home team.
I've seen a couple of these gurus out there, these college football
gurus Arizona State
that think this is going to be Herm's week because Herm does what we're talking about with some of these other teams.
He gets
like where Gundy chokes. They're saying this is the week where Herm's going to get his statement win. But possibly, Chip Kelly has already choked once this year.
Right.
I've got to believe that's another program that's on the rise. He's not going to choke right now again.
Agreed.
So there you go, kids. So we got 2 segments left now. We've got to get baseball in because the postseason starts next week. We've got to get NASCAR in. We're halfway through the playoffs. We've got dumbasses. We've got moments of silence.
And we got a hodgepodge of other things that we want to touch base with.
We're only halfway home. Stick with us. More fun and games coming. We'll be right back. when the mindless zombies at the major sports networks won't leave you alone, when the forces of evil on local sports radio have you cornered. Load up the boomstick known as Sports Frenzy 2.0. Available on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, and Castbox. Kev and Dave will drive the dull and boring voices in your head away and offer you the sports salvation you need. New episodes drop every Thursday. And don't forget the weekend edition every Saturday, where the maestro and the conquistador might just review your favorite horror flick. Sports Frenzy 2.0. It's groovy. Hey everybody, welcome back to segment 3, Sports Frenzy 2.0, the 29th of September, 2021. This will hit first thing tomorrow morning on the 30th. I am the maestro, Kevin Crane.
I'm the conquistador, Dave Height.
So football, we're all footballed out. Who knows, though? Might have some football players come up in the dumbasses of the week in the next segment.
One never knows.
But for right now, we got to pick up the pieces of everything else. Our other two major sports that we talk about, of course, hockey's coming.
Yep, preseason is kicked off.
Right, but right now it's NASCAR and baseball.
Yep.
And then, of course, in the last segment, we'll pick up, we'll talk about the Ryder Cup. We'll talk about the NBA. Oh, we got some fun stuff to talk about in the NBA.
The NBA is going to be fun.
But first, of course, we're halfway through the NASCAR playoffs. This weekend, Talladega is race 5 out of the playoffs.
Mass chaos looms on the horizon.
Of course, Dave and I were both thinking, coming into the playoffs, of like mind, that Kyle Larson was the favorite to pull this whole thing off.
Right.
The way he had the momentum, he was probably angry and bitter about how last year went. Now he's finally with a great team, great car, great pit crew. He's redeeming himself. But now, all of a sudden,
Denny Hamlin
does not find a way to win in the regular season, now has 2 wins in the first 4 races in the playoffs.
Yep, that team has found something. They're starting to click, and they could be giving Mr. Larson a run for his money down the stretch.
And I don't think it would shock anybody. If you ask anybody who knows anything about NASCAR, they would say out of all the drivers out there on the track, Hamlin is the one without a cup title that is the next in line.
Now,
you don't sound... Oh, I want to hear this. You don't sound convinced. Who else is out there? Larson's still young enough where he could bounce back next year and get one.
He could, but I guess you could say this could be Hamlin's one of his final chances to make that.
That's what I'm saying,
leap.
yeah. But there's nobody else out there who... all the other guys have either won a cup title or they're not on a good enough team to really contend.
Yeah. Hamlin,
the strongest.
It's
but now
probably going to
Hamlin
come down
is
to
looking
those two.
like he's finally, like you said, figured something out.
Yeah.
I agree. It's going to come down to those two. I don't see a dark horse winning this at all.
No. Agreed.
I'd be shocked if Hamlin and Larson aren't battling at Phoenix for the title. Right down to the last lap.
Yeah, that I can completely see that.
Right.
That is going to could be an epic battle.
Right. Now, the interesting thing is going to be, of course, who are going to be the other 2 drivers.
Right. And that's who the hell knows at this point.
Right. And again, with the carryover of the playoff points, you get that carryover all the way to the final race.
Because you had Harvick right there gaining momentum coming through, but because of the playoff points.
Right. And he was okay.
Hosed.
He was okay at Vegas, but not great.
Right. I do not agree with the playoff points carrying over into every single round.
No, I don't like it either. There's something wrong with that. And we talked about it, especially on the elimination race after the 3rd race, where, like you said, Harvick had a great first round, really ran strong. But because he didn't have quote-unquote playoff points, he plummeted all the way to the back
Right.
Whereas guys who barely were able to get in, like Byron and Bowman,
Because
jumped way ahead of them because
points.
they had better regular season stats and playoff points than Harvick did.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you. I don't like that at all.
No.
There
the
should
playoff
be
point should be there for that first round to set things up. And then you move forward.
Right. I don't think it's fair to penalize Harvick for having a great first round of the playoffs as opposed to guys like Bowman and Byron who didn't, yet because they had a better regular season, they jump ahead of Harvick in the second round. Doesn't make sense to me.
Makes no sense at all.
No. Speaking of Kevin Harvick, good news and bad news. Rodney Childers got a contract extension with the 4 team, so he looks like he's going to be working with Happy for as long as Happy's there and possibly beyond. But lug nuts. What about the lug nuts, guys?
You gotta put them on the damn car.
Childers, right after he gets this extension, gets nailed with a one race suspension for lug nut violation. I believe 2 were missing at the end of the race.
Yeah.
So rumors are Greg Zipadelli is going to fill in for him.
That's not a bad alternative.
Not confirmed, but that's the rumor. So
bring in Zippy.
Zippy's going to take over for Childers for one race. But again, I don't know how much the pit crew can really do at Talladega.
It's, there's nothing they can do.
A super speedway is the one track you don't want speeding penalties.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think you care all that goddamn much until the end about how quick your pit stop is. Make sure you get everything tightened up. Make sure you get a full load of fuel. I would rather come out a second or 2 later in Dega, unless you're at the end.
Because
and make sure everything on the car is solid and filled and tightened.
Yeah.
It's not like other tracks. Daytona and Talladega, I would rather make sure the car is good to go for the long haul. If I got to ride in the back for a while, I'll ride in the back for a while.
Try to avoid what is coming.
Right. So I don't know how much the pit crew and the crew chief matters at a super speedway.
Right. And we've talked about it. Really, a super speedway does not belong in the chase.
No. Too random, too chaotic.
Half the field's going to get taken out in a stupid move.
Right.
And that has no bearing.
It doesn't judge a driver's skill at all.
No.
It really doesn't.
It is pure random chance.
Right. And again, we've talked for years about road courses, and now we're happy because we've got more road courses in there. Now, some people would probably argue against us and say, well, what's the point of the road courses? Because Chase Elliott or Martin Truex win every road course. Well, that tells me they're better drivers.
Right.
Because a road course, it's about driving skill.
Exactly.
It's not random. You're not going to get caught up in a random accident unless you're riding the Indy road course and, curbs start coming up and tearing up the bottom of cars.
And kill everything.
Right.
No, now there is some skill at drafting, but not as much anymore as there used to be. They've even taken that away with the cookie cutter templates and everything else. You can't get that big run. You can't make those moves within the draft like you used to be able to make.
Right.
It's hard to get that run. So.
And of course, it's NASCAR. So, the new car of tomorrow, the next gen car, will probably get a whole different feel for how these cars drive at super speedways.
Yeah. It's,
if they're not changing the car template, they're changing whether or not there's a restrictor plate on it or not,
Make up your freaking mind what you want to do.
Right. But I completely agree with you. 100%. The super speedway is too random. I don't like the fact now that Daytona is race 26. I don't like that the most pressure-packed race for people to try to get in that 15th or 16th slot
is another freaking super speedway, where randomness runs rampant.
Right. It's not how you drive; it's how lucky you are.
Yeah.
And I don't like that either. So I would take both of those. Nobody's saying get rid of the 2 Daytona races.
No.
Nobody's saying
You
get rid
have
of the
to
2
divvy 'em
Talladega.
up in the regular season and
Right.
not have them right at the freaking end.
Right. You got to give teams a chance to make up for the epic disaster that inevitably will happen 4 times a year out of 36 races at those tracks.
Yeah.
You've got to give them a chance to make up the points.
They should not have any bearing on trying to get in at the last second or in the playoffs themselves.
No, I hate to say it, but should be cookie cutter or a short track for race 26. And then, of course,
take the super
you got the
speedways
one
off, but
right.
Random. I would rather see Pocono in there.
Right. Yeah, put Pocono in. Keep the Roval, keep one road course in the finals. I wouldn't even be opposed to 2. But again, people are going to say,
too much.
Yeah, then you're giving an advantage to Chase and to Truex.
Yeah. Keep one road course.
Right.
You got to have a couple short tracks.
Right.
And then a 2-miler, maybe the 2.5 of Pocono, the mile and a half.
Right. And of course, like we talked about here when they announced the 2022 schedule, they're bringing Homestead back in, which, so that's going to basically be dumped right in the middle of this 10-race playoff.
I'd rather have Homestead in there than Talladega or Daytona in the chase.
But they're keeping Talladega.
They screwed up again.
Yeah. No, remember I told you they're taking
yeah, I know.
Was it Richmond, I think, is getting bounced out?
Yeah, to the final race before again.
Yeah.
Wrong.
All right, so our picks for the Yellowwood 500 from Talladega down in Bama.
We're missing one pick, but that's all right now.
Yep, deadline has not approached yet. Dave and I have to talk about the plan, quote unquote. How Dave and I like to stick with the plan, quote unquote. We both have our own versions of the plan.
Where we pencil in who we want to take.
We do it in baseball. We do it in NASCAR. Those are the two that are really conducive to setting things up ahead of time. We try and look
weeks ahead to see how things may play out, and we can adjust and adapt depending.
Right. Of course, you can't do that with March Madness. You can't do that with fantasy football.
No.
You can't do that with football picks. But baseball and NASCAR, you can plan ahead. So that's where we come up with the plan. So Dave is sticking with the plan.
Yep, even though our leader, Doug, has taken Blaney for this. That was my penciled-in driver, and I'm sticking with it. I'm not that far off his lead. I can make it up. I just didn't want to lose any ground to him at this point.
Yeah, so right now you are in our Frenzy Cup standings. That's what we call our competition. You right now have 2,158. We don't reset like NASCAR. We do it once at the beginning of the playoffs, and then we go straight through. So you are at 2179. Sorry, 2179. Doug is at 2196. So you got 17 points to make up, which isn't terrible.
No, that's doable.
I'm down at 2147. And when I saw, you and I had already discussed, you and I were both going to go with Blaney.
Right.
But that, to me, was contingent on Doug picking somebody else. I was fine with going with you. You make up ground on Doug. I make up ground on Doug. Then I'll worry about catching you later.
Right.
Now, with him taking Blaney, or with his autocorrect, as it came across on my phone, Ryan Blanket.
That's an invalid pick. Invalid pick.
So
it said right there, Blanket.
I don't see a Ryan Blanket in the available NASCAR drivers slate.
But he picked him. Maybe he knows something we don't.
So anyway, Doug takes Ryan Blanket. But of course, that screws us up, or me up, because I got too much ground to make up. Next week with the Roval is going to be not a disaster in terms of what happens on the track like this week.
Right.
But we all know who the favorite is going to be at the Roval. And so almost everybody is going to be taking the same driver. So that leaves me 4 races. If I take Blaney, That leaves me 4 races to make up all that ground on all you guys.
Yeah.
And I can't do that.
You can't do that.
So I am deviating from the plan. Gonna take Blaney back a few races.
I almost went with you on this one. I was close to deviation.
We discussed this. This will give me 4 solid drivers who I'm comfortable with over the last 4 races, who I think will hopefully make it to that round.
Yeah.
To that round of 8. So I am going to deviate and take William Byron. I would have preferred to take Blaney, which you've got, which of course Doug has and the Elder Statesman has.
Yep.
Preferred pick, but now I will take what I can get.
You gotta do.
Blaney, I can save for later on for another race where I've got him penciled in. Now my plan is set in stone. Now I'm screwed. I'm stuck.
Now you're hosed.
I've got to go with my plan now the rest of the way.
Yep. Big Blue W takes Logano.
Which isn't a bad pick.
Nope.
Nick's taking Brad Keselowski. Again, not a bad pick.
Nope.
The only one, again, that puzzles us out of the 7 we've got in so far, Aaron pulled the trigger, and we talked about this.
We talked about this one.
Who is going to have the patience to hold off on taking Chase Elliott before the Roval?
Aaron blinked first. He took Chase for Dega.
Which I would not have done.
No.
I never would have done. Never would have done. I would have taken somebody like Almirola first.
Yeah.
I would never have burned a Chase here at Talladega.
No.
Now watch, he'll go out and win. You watch. Or post max points. What we care about now, we don't care about wins now. We care about
maxing out your points.
So, and of course, Elliott will be starting up in the field. All these guys will be, of course.
Yeah, they'll be up there.
But again, it's going to be
it's Dega.
Who survives, who's lucky.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Who cannot be behind or in front?
Bubba Wallace.
You cannot have Kyle Busch directly behind you or in front of you.
You can't have
Kyle Stenhouse.
Stenhouse or Bubba Wallace. Those are guys I'm saying.
You have got to be way ahead of those 3 guys.
Yeah, now some of the underrated drivers, real quick before we move on to baseball, that I always like at the super speedways. Regular season, I might have taken one of these guys, but of course I can't.
Not at this point.
Too much to risk here.
Austin
Dillon, always good at a super speedway.
Yeah.
Almirola again.
Almirola.
Usually pretty good at a super speedway. Guys, those are your sleeper picks. Again, you don't want to burn, for fantasy purposes or our contest purposes, a really good driver. You go with a guy like that. You go with a Dillon, you go with Almirola, even a Stenhouse, maybe. I know. But
yeah, there you go.
He will, I guarantee it's going to be like Allmendinger this year, winning that road course. Stenhouse will win again at a super speedway at some point in the next year or 2.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Go ahead and gloat. Go ahead and gloat about the White Sox, the AL Central champions.
Woohoo! Although they slid through, struggled down the stretch, not happy by fading back to 3rd in the AL. But we're only mathematical
chance is still there.
Behind the Astros in this last
What killed you, I was thinking of you, bud. What killed you last night? Again, we're taping on the 29th.
The Astros freaking comeback.
Come from behind. They were getting beat, and they come from behind late.
Yeah.
That would have helped you out a lot.
I know.
But you're right. Mathematically, you are still alive for the number 2 seed.
I'm not counting on it, though.
But 2.5 now behind the Astros with 5 to play going into tonight.
It's not looking good, but who knows? Anything can happen.
So basically going to be playing the Astros with them having
home field.
Yep. And of course the evil
empire
is
the
making
Yankees.
Their run.
They're kind of sitting pretty there with that first wild card.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be at Yankee Stadium.
Yep, and it's looking like the Mariners.
I was going to say the Mariners are rolling.
They are. The A's have faded.
The Red Sox are choking.
The Red Sox completely
Toronto had it all in front of them as of last night. They had to step up and beat the Yankees in first game. They couldn't do it. So now they're in trouble. And like you said, the Mariners are just charging forward. I think they're going to be the ones playing at Yankee Stadium. I do.
The Mariners were giving the Astros a hell of a run for the top spot in the West, too.
Yeah, I think they mathematically cannot win the title now.
No, they cannot get the West right now.
And I don't like their pitching staff.
No.
But their lineup is really solid.
They've got a really good
Scott
lineup.
Service is a really underrated manager.
Defense.
So I would look for Seattle next year to challenge the Astros for the West title.
Definitely.
I really would. If they could maybe land a good free
They
agent pitcher
need
or two.
A starter.
Yeah. Yeah. They got young Chris Flexen is their ace right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, they really don't have much else.
No. So moving on to the NL, it's coming down to the wire for the Giants Dodgers on who's going to win the West or be that first wild card. Giants have a 2-game lead.
Have you ever, I mean, I know we've seen this in the past where there have been teams who've won 100 games that have missed the playoffs.
Yeah.
But these teams will not lose.
No, they're just.
The Giants and the Dodgers, this is like a 15-round epic old school boxing slugfest where no man is going down, no man is conceding. They've both won the same amount of rounds. And we're in the 15th round and they are just bloody, battered, beaten, but they want that. They're smart because both teams want that home field.
You got to have the home field.
Right.
Because the one gets the home field throughout, the other's a wild card.
Now, they will host the wild card game, but again, that's it.
Right.
Right? I do believe after that,
they're on the road.
Playing, even if they're playing a lesser division winner, like the Braves. Let's say the Braves win the East. I think the Dodgers would still have to.
Atlanta would have home field because they won their division.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So, and then you got the Cardinals, who were on a hell of a 17-game winning streak, have moved into second to get the second wild card.
Right. So right now we know most of the playoff teams in the National League. We're still waiting on the AL or the NL East division title. It looks like the Braves are going to win it. The Phillies just can't get over that hump. They just can't get over that hump.
Damn them.
They make a run, and then they fall back. They make a run. And Atlanta does the same thing, but the Phillies can't make it coincide with them getting to the top.
Yeah, the Phillies they don't have the drive to make it.
No. They're still a player away.
Yeah.
Again, probably a pitcher away.
Yeah.
So I think Atlanta's going to win that. And then, of course, whoever – again, these guys look like they're not going to lose between the Giants and the Dodgers. So if we project it out right now, Dodgers host the Cardinals. Wow, that's going to be the way the Cardinals are on fire right now.
That's going to be a hell of a series.
The only thing that if the Dodgers get through, let's say the Dodgers and the Cardinals play, you figure the Cardinals are going to have to burn Wainwright, their best pitcher.
Yeah.
Who I can't believe is still doing what he's doing. I think he's got 17 wins this year.
I know. How the hell did that happen?
How old is he? He's Methuselah.
Yeah.
You know?
He knows how to pitch, though.
Right. So you're going to have Wainwright going against Scherzer. So the Dodgers will have to burn Scherzer, but they've got a deep enough rotation where if they were to win, I think they'd be okay.
They would be all right. The Cardinals.
Losing Wainwright, going into the first, full series, they don't have the depth in pitching.
That could come back to haunt them.
Right. But it's getting exciting, getting fun.
Yes.
Now, in terms of going back to the AL for a second, I know we're looking at the Mariners, and it'd be kind of fun to see the Mariners get in. It'd be breaking a long drought for them. But I would rather see Toronto somehow step it up here. I'd like to see Toronto win these next 2 games against the Yankees and get in and play the Yankees again for that, because the bats, the lineup for the Blue Jays is much more intimidating.
Young lineup that the Jays have is phenomenal.
They can beat anybody at any time and outslug them.
Yeah.
I don't see Seattle beating New York in a 1-game playoff. I just don't.
No.
Which is sad. But it'd be nice for Seattle to break that streak, though.
1-game playoff bullshit.
I know. I'd like 3.
It needs to be a best of 3. This one and done crap has got to go.
Well, baseball doesn't really seem like they care much. We talked about a couple of weeks ago. You know, the World Series is projected, if it goes 7, to end in November. So if they don't care,
stupid.
what's it going to matter if you tack another couple days on?
Yeah.
Really, what's it going to matter? Before we wrap up segment 3, can we talk about the Cubs? Jesus. Oh, Jesus.
Ending on the downslide.
Yet again, did you notice it ever since David Ross came back? You know, they played really well when the interim manager was, when Ross had COVID.
Yeah.
Now they are 2-14 in their last 16, flailing miserably. They are 67-90, getting beat last night by the lowly Pittsburgh Pirates.
Wow.
Now, Jed Hoyer came out this week, and of course, what's he going to say?
Oh, we're all behind Rossi.
We're going to spend money. We're going to spend money. We're going to be very active in the free agent market.
There's no free agents out there.
Who you going to bring Max Scherzer in now? On the downside of his career? And that has always been a bitter pill for me. I have made so many stupid mistakes, propositions, calls in my life when it comes to my favorite teams. Whether it be the Bears, whether it be the Cubs, the Orlando Magic, the Miami Hurricanes. Like I said earlier in the college football segment, I was all behind Mark Richt. I was all behind Manny Diaz. Failure. Way to go. Idiot maestro. All right?
I'm not disagreeing with you.
No. Shut up, Dave! But now you've got Hoyer talking about spending money. I wanted Scherzer back when they signed Lester. They had a choice.
I know.
They had a choice, Scherzer or Lester. And because Theo, I remember fondly the days in Boston with John Lester.
Guess
you
what?
could have had Max goddamn Scherzer for the same money.
And guess what?
Who's about to win another Cy Young.
Probably would have had a second World Series if you would have had Scherzer.
I agree. Scherzer got his with the Nationals, but he could have had one with the Cubs on top of, like you said, the first.
You probably could have had 2 if you had Max.
I know John Lester is going to be looked upon fondly in the years ahead as a Cubs legend. I was never that impressed with him as a pitcher.
No. He
Kyle Hendricks is my guy. And Kyle Hendricks is shitting the bed this year.
Yeah.
I just think he doesn't care anymore.
Why would he? He's always been an afterthought over on the north side.
He's probably going to be gone next year.
They've never given him the props he deserved.
He's probably going to be gone. He's got an affordable, movable contract.
Yeah. It's
a shame. I love the guy. But yeah, we could have had Scherzer. I go back to that. Scherzer or Lester. And it all came down to Theo FC's idea of loyalty.
And overpaid for Lester.
Where Scherzer would have been worth every single stinking penny. Never goes down. Never gets injured. Might miss 1 or 2 starts a year. The man is one of my favorite pitchers of all time. And I'm happy that he's got a chance with the Dodgers. I'm not rooting for the Dodgers. I don't like the Dodgers.
No.
The Dodgers go way over the luxury tax threshold, and they go, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? We're just going to spend the money.
Yeah.
Just like the Yankees.
Charges. Oh, well.
Yeah. But good for Max if he gets another ring. Should have been with the Cubs. So I think what we need to do now, we wrap this up. We will talk about vaccinations in the NBA, the Ryder Cup.
Then a little boxing.
Moments of silence, and dumbasses in our final segment.
There we go. Stay tuned.
Hello, friends. Are you tired of the boring sports analysis you get from the major outlets? If so, join the Maestro and the Conquistador for a riveting discussion of all sports topics on Sports Frenzy 2.0, available on Spotify, Google, Apple, and wherever podcasts are available.
All right, kids. It's time for that final segment here on Sports Frenzy 2.0. Here as we record on September 29th, airing on September 30th, 2021. I'm the Conquistador Dave Height.
I'm the Maestro Kevin Crane. Do not forget to check out our Facebook page for all of our football picks, all of our NASCAR picks. Do not forget that we are on Spotify, Anchor, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Apple, Overcast, and CastBox, and Dave loves it every time I do that.
Just say everywhere you can find a podcast.
We will be there. Like that bad penny that always turns up, like that irritating neighbor that you will never get rid of because they won't move away.
Exactly. All right, we're going to finish up with our hodgepodge of sports news before we get into our moments of silence and your favorite portion, dumbasses of the week.
Should we talk about the hug?
We got to hug it out from the Ryder Cup.
It sucks. The hug sucks.
They buried the hatchet in each other's back.
I usually, kids, if you don't know anything about me by now, 30 episodes in, I'm all about peace, love, and understanding, paraphrasing the great Elvis Costello. But
in golf,
Brooks Koepka and Bryson DeChambeau need to be bitter, angry, nasty rivals till the end of time because it's going to make golf better. I don't want them hugging.
So much more fun. But no, the U.S. wins the Ryder Cup handily. Gosh, 19-9.
Yeah. Record deficit in terms of a loss.
Yeah.
For Europe.
Yeah. Much needed win for the U.S. in this competition.
Right. I did watch a little bit of it, believe it or not. I did check about an hour out of the Ryder Cup. So, interesting format. I'll admit I'm usually a majors guy. I'm only watching the four majors. But, different format here for the Ryder Cup. So there was one hole where Jordan Spieth, when I caught it, was stuck right under the lip of a sand trap. And he just couldn't. He took like 3 hacks at it, and every time the ball just bounced back right where he hit it from. But in the Ryder Cup, you just go, okay, we can see the hole, and you move on.
Yeah.
So things are quicker in the Ryder Cup in terms of, pace of play. But, yeah.
That helps.
Yeah, I was glad to see U.S. win, of course, but not happy about the hugging and the love fest.
If he was under the lip, why didn't he, the first shot, chip it back to give himself a better angle?
Yeah, I don't know.
Wouldn't that have been... That's
what he would have done in normal stroke play. But with the format they use in the Ryder Cup, I think he basically had to try to go all or nothing. As it turns out, it would have been smarter either way for him to chip back, like you said. But on the first shot, he committed. He must have thought he could hit it at a high enough arc, get it over and onto the green. When he screwed up the first time, he was over. He was done. He had to try it again and again, and then tin cupped it.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're right. If he'd committed, if he'd known what was coming, he would have been smarter to do what you did or what you would have done. But because he thought he was arrogant, he's an arrogant athlete. He thought he could pull the shot off. He didn't, so he was committed.
He should be committed for that.
So on to boxing.
Boxing. Manny Pacquiao is retiring at the age of 42. He is the only boxer to win in 8 different divisions.
Yep.
Absolutely unbelievable career. 62-8-2 with 39 knockouts. One of the greatest boxers of his time.
And it's a shame that I know a lot of people probably it's a conundrum right now because UFC is big. All the MMA stuff is big. The combat sports are huge right now. Dana White, of course, the big promoter of all of it. But it's a shame that boxing can't be what it was 25, 30 years ago when you still had Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis was the last great to me boxer. I lost complete and total interest in boxing after that.
Yeah, it started to go downhill.
Well, and then they fractured everything. They split everything up.
Yeah, it got absolutely ridiculous.
I know you hate my wrestling analogies, but it's the same crap you see in WWE, where they've got a Monday night champion, a Friday night champion, but then there's a U.S. champion, an intercontinental champion.
Yeah,
and that's what boxing has done now, too.
It's fragmented itself to stupid levels. Let's face it, boxing judges have ruined it over the last 20 years.
Yeah, claims of corruption
has been brutal, and the boxing itself has not been good.
And again, you don't have the personalities.
Yeah, and you just don't have guys who can box anymore.
And I think people would, obviously,
I would prefer a damn good boxing. I would rather see a damn good boxing bout over some of this UFC stuff.
Right. I can't get into the UFC. I just can't.
I used to back in the day when it first started.
Right.
Where you had you could have two grapplers going at it, two strikers going at it, or a striker and a grappler when it came down to it. Now, it's more of a free-for-all. There's not much of a science to it.
It seems to me that it's almost like people are waiting for somebody to break a leg or have their nose busted, instead of actually appreciating what's going
the finer
on
art of what
in the octagon.
Yeah.
And back in the day in boxing, in the ring. I don't need.
It used to be called the sweet science,
right? And I didn't need to see a knockout. I could understand watch an Evander Holyfield Tyson fight
going at
or
a
Lewis Holyfield fight,
and
understand
the
trying
to block and play defense.
You could tell who was having a better fight. You could almost tell who was landing the punches and how they were scoring. The judges were scoring it.
Right.
You could almost figure that out on your own. That's what made it more enjoyable. Yeah. Plus, again, the personalities. It was a special event. You only got, 2, maybe 3 fights a year?
Of the real top
ones. Right.
But then you used to be able to watch it on Saturday. Freaking ABC Saturday afternoon sports. The wide world of sports. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's a shame. I wish boxing would make some semblance of a comeback. I know recently there was... Wilder and Fury was kind of creating some buzz, but I just couldn't get into it.
But you don't have Sugar Ray Leonard anymore. You don't have Felix Trinidad. You don't have Roberto Duran with Sugar Ray Leonard.
Right, going way back.
Oscar De La Hoya.
That's who I was really trying to go for. It's more recent. Yeah.
Roy Jones Jr. was always fun.
Right. And then, of course, now this week, no pun intended, but of course it's too easy. A black eye for UFC. John Jones got arrested, and it's looking really bad.
It's
one of the big names in UFC
yeah.
gets arrested, domestic battery, and it's not sounding good at all.
And the aforementioned Dana White said he should have gotten help for his substance abuse 10 years ago. Well, gee, you managed the UFC. Why the hell didn't you push for him to go into it?
Yeah.
You should have mandated that be part of him participating.
Right. Well, and that's like we're talking
about. And that's
about.
Still the shit you pull by letting the dumbass Conor McGregor continue to go in and out with the crap he pulls.
Right. And I know technically the employer is not liable, but we were talking going back, doing a full circle thing here, all the way back to the first segment, talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and that mess and how they're enabling Josh Gordon by bringing him back. Yet at the same time, you've got the head coach's son, who is an addict, who has destroyed lives. And yet now you're going to give Josh Gordon another chance and give him another paycheck, a big paycheck. I do. I hope
the guy is talented. He doesn't need that crap.
None of us in this world, none of us working 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, would get half as many chances.
No.
as Josh
one or
Gordon
two
has
and
gotten.
done.
So like you said, Dave, I don't know where the employer's responsibility ends and begins, but you're right. I know damn well Dana White should be able, with as close as he is to these boxers, especially, or fighters, these big name responsibility.
Yeah.
Like the CEO of Walmart doesn't bear responsibility for a coke addict working in the produce section of a Walmart in Joliet, Illinois. But if the manager
local
of that
manager
store,
of that
if the
store
manager of that
bears
store
full
has seen the problem,
responsibility.
how much responsibility does he have? He's closer to the situation. He recognizes the situation.
And he needs to take action and try and get the person
In this
help.
snowflake day and age, I thought that's what we were supposed to do. I thought we were supposed to help each other and be all nice and copacetic and offer every option possible to make everybody's life easy.
But you can't turn your back.
You can't. You can't. And especially, like you said, Dana White knew what was going on.
Yeah. And he allowed him to continue.
And as long as the money kept flowing in from the pay-per-views.
What did he care?
Right. Right. Speaking of companies, big sports conglomerates that don't give one rat's ass, let's talk about ESPN.
Again.
On a couple different levels. Let's talk about sports gambling. You and I have railed on sports gambling and the proliferation of ads.
There's more freaking ads for sports gambling than there ever was for erectile dysfunction.
Yeah, and it was bad enough from that back then.
Exactly.
And now it's 10 times worse.
And this is an addictive freaking thing that they're promoting.
And we can tie this in.
You can ruin people's lives on these bets.
And we can tie this right into what we were just talking about. This is supposed to be the era, the age, where we're supposed to be caring about mental health. Ask Naomi Osaka.
Yeah.
Ask Simone Biles. You know, we've got radio telethons, radio shows across the country, televised with, you know, Lizzo and Kevin Love talking about mental health, available on 300, 400 channels across the globe. Yet Dana White ignores McGregor's problems, ignores Jones's problems.
Yep.
And now we've got ESPN and Disney are starting to get into the gambling game.
Promoting gambling, which will cause mental health. It will ruin people's lives because, just one more. I can make it up on this one. No, you're causing people to go bankrupt promoting this crap.
Right. And the fact that Disney is looking into getting into gambling and gaming apps worries me. Now, on top of that, the big controversy that got me looking into this was, we all know who Adam Schefter is, right?
Yeah.
The insider, the football insider for ESPN, the guy that finds out about all the injuries.
The one who said Aaron Rodgers was on his way out of Green Bay, that he was going to sit out or retire.
Well, here's what's interesting to me. We can discuss it another time when it becomes more official and they actually put the money down when Disney actually does invest. But now this part of it is very interesting because, of course, Disney owns ESPN. So Adam Schefter, along with Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, are investing in a gambling app called Boom Entertainment, which one of their apps is the NBC Sports Predictor. So here's my question to you.
How
Isn't that a conflict of interest, not only for Schefter as a quote-unquote journalist,
but also Kraft as an owner of a sports franchise?
And the funny thing is, Schefter's working for ESPN, but he's investing in a gambling app that's owned by NBC Universal Comcast. The competition. The competition.
Is he on his way out? Is there something he knows?
No, because I think we're getting to the point, as we've talked about. We talk about this a lot on the Weekend Edition when it comes to Hollywood and the hypocrites that we see in Hollywood day in and day out. You assholes wear a mask. You scumbags, you middle class, lower class people, you wear a mask, but we don't have to. We'll go to the Emmys, and
we'll do whatever the hell we
but
want.
you better do what we want you to do.
Say, not what we do.
That's what I think we're seeing here, is that these guys will not get in trouble. This will get pushed under the rug.
Yep, you won't hear anything else about it.
Even though it's definitely a conflict of interest, especially every Sunday morning I get up. Now, I don't gamble. I do play fantasy football, but we play free.
Right.
But there are a lot of people that play the DFS stuff and put money on it. Now, is Schefter going to be completely honest and truthful with the information he dishes out if it could impact his investment?
That's the big question.
Is he going to withhold information so prices on players go up or down? Because that's how it works.
Right.
So he can cash in and
his app goes through the roof.
Right. He signs his team up knowing things that other players don't. So players are undervalued, and he goes ahead and puts them on his.
Now,
he tells it to his friends.
Yeah.
And
what
says,
kind of insider
you kick me
info
back a
are
little
we
bit.
looking at
Kick me
here?
back a little bit because I'm giving you this insider info.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of situation we're looking at?
This is not a good situation.
No, I don't like this at all. And of course, we can go to the NBA, because the NBA, we've got a bunch of players who've decided they don't want to get vaccinated, and now local restrictions are going to keep them from playing home games.
And the NBA and the Players Association, they have their agreement that no pay to any unvaccinated player who is unable to play because of it.
Now, the first player, and we knew this was coming. And so far, I applaud the NBA for I'm going to keep saying so far
taking the
sticking by their guns, backing the local municipalities, whether you agree with them or not, in San Francisco and in New York.
Yep.
Golden State's Andrew Wiggins was the first one, tried to get a religious exemption. The NBA cried bullshit. Good for them.
Yep.
And told him, no. Guess what? You cannot play in home games. Now it's trickled down to the idiot savant of the NBA,
Mr. Irving.
Kyrie Irving, who we're going to hopefully have a runoff for Dumbass of the Year, because right now, between Kyrie Irving and Naomi Osaka, those two, good Lord.
They're 1A and 1B right now.
And when people tried to ask him at a press conference about this, all he could say was, "You need to respect my privacy. You need to respect my privacy."
Ask me a basketball question.
Yeah, that was fine when they were directly asking him about, have you been vaccinated? Status. Somebody asked him, do you plan on playing home games this year based on the current circumstances? That's a private issue. I can't answer that. That's bullshit. That is a basketball question. You're ducking the question because you're a little spoiled brat. A 30-plus-year-old man acting like a little spoiled brat, which is what Kyrie always does. And I have heard behind the scenes secretly, the Nets are like, why the hell did we bring this guy in? Because, of course, Durant wanted him. Now, Durant goes out and gets vaccinated.
Yep.
Signs an extension. They get Harden in. So now Harden and Irving are due for extensions. And behind the scenes, the word is the Nets are like, God, is there any way, shape, or form? It's like
we can get rid of
the Deshaun Watson thing.
Yeah.
Is there any way we can get rid of this guy? Just cut bait.
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving has been nothing but a nightmare for the Nets. Nothing but a nightmare. So this is what you get.
Yep, when you let the inmates run the asylum.
Dave, you can't say that. That's politically incorrect.
Guess what? This show is built on political incorrectness.
Now, before we get to the moments of silence, I want to wrap up this NBA brief segment on a positive note. My second favorite basketball player of all time, undeniably next to Charles Barkley, probably our favorite NBA commentator of all time, is Shaquille O'Neal.
Yes.
Shaq is the greatest. Shaq gets
Shaq
it.
is
Shaq and Barkley get it.
They are awesome.
Now, the thing is, Barkley tends to get himself in trouble a little bit more than Shaq does. Shaq has a law enforcement background.
The PC line a little bit better. Barkley just doesn't care and calls it like
now, but Shaq, of course, has a law enforcement background.
Right.
So he understands the police. He understands law enforcement. He understands a lot of what's going on in the world, obviously, as an African-American athlete.
Yeah.
And he doesn't buy into this crap. He doesn't do what LeBron does. He doesn't do what Kyrie does. The other night, I think he did an interview with a New York newspaper. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's where this comes from. Shaq says, I am done. I do not want to be a celebrity. I'm denouncing my celebrityness because these people are freaking crazy. They don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're doing. It's not rational. It's not sane.
Good for
I'm
him.
paraphrasing a little bit of that, especially towards the end. But Shaq gets it. Shaq has always got it. You know, you buy one of his Shaq-a-roni pizzas,
and money goes
at
to
Papa
a good
John's,
cause.
and there are multiple charities that benefit. $1 from every pizza you buy at Papa John's, his Shaq-a-roni goes to a worthy charity. So please, kids, go out and do that if you can afford it. Help out. He gets it. He always has gotten it, and hopefully he always will. And he will be the elder statesman. Sorry, Sam. For the NBA for years and decades to come. All right, moving on to our moments of silence. Unfortunately, my lone moment of silence is unbelievably tragic.
Oh, this is sad.
Aaron Lowe, Utah football player, shot and killed at a house party recently. Gun violence in America. Nobody here is going to talk about the Second Amendment. We believe in the Second Amendment.
We don't believe in the stupidity of people.
Right. You should be allowed to own a gun, but boy, if only there was a test. It's like people have said about being a parent. You should be able to give a test to make sure people aren't dumb enough to screw it up. And it's the same thing with guns. You wish there was a way.
You know what? It's all the illegal ones that are being used in these crimes. Yes. Your legitimate gun owners are not committing these atrocities.
Right. Yeah, and we again don't want to get into politics here, but just keep in mind, celebrities, politicians, people in office, the ones that talk about restricting your rights to have guns, they're the ones that have armed bodyguards. They're the ones that have armed,
they live behind
armed escorts and bulletproof glass and limousines that they take to and from home.
They have the biggest walls around their mansions.
Yep, gated, guarded, key card access. Just remember that. That is the hypocrisy that we want to avoid in this country.
Yep.
Dumbasses?
Dumbasses.
I don't think we're going to play dumbass or not this week because mine are pretty clear cut.
They're pretty clear cut and dried. Go.
I am bringing Kyrie Irving back. I know we just talked about him, but part of his logic for not getting a vaccination is worthy of a Red Foreman Dumbass of the Week award. Kyrie Irving thinks...
conspiracy theory is he buying into?
Kyrie Irving thinks that the vaccination scheme is part of a plan where a master computer run by Satan is going to be used to manipulate and track black people. Paraphrasing again, please never assume I'm giving you a direct quote unless I say so, but I do the best I can to make it as close as possible to the actual quote.
My question for Mr. Irving, do you have a cell phone? Because guess what? That's what they track you with, dumbass.
Yeah, it's amazing that... What are you so worried about that they're going to find out what you're doing? I believe in personal freedom. Don't get me wrong. That's where I get torn. I really get torn on this issue because I do believe people have the right to choose. But at the same time, this is a public health crisis. Nobody's trying to track you. Nobody's trying to make you infertile.
Although I wish they would with you, Irving, because
Yeah.
we don't need any more morons like you.
Kudos to the Conquistador for that one.
Ugh.
Did you have one, you said?
I am calling out the SMU football team for trying to plant the flag at midfield at TCU's university when they beat them, which led to a huge melee, leading to the concussion of an epileptic-prone TCU coach. I'm sorry, if you're a visiting team, do not be that asshole to go out there and try and plant your flag and make a statement. Complete stupidity. Show some class.
Thank you for clearing that up, because I'd heard a little about that, but I did not know the full extent. That is definitely dumbass worthy.
Yeah, SMU planned to do that if they won. TCU found out ahead of time that it could happen. The players took exception. One of the coaches going out to try and break it up got pushed down twice. Second time, hitting his head, causing a concussion, and he has some epileptic history. Completely uncalled for. Visiting teams do not do that crap. It's stupid.
A lot of this stuff, the flag stuff, we've heard about that in the past with other teams. Just be happy you won the game, or be happy, you're out on a Saturday night getting drunk, maybe going to get laid. You're 20 years old. You got your whole life ahead of you.
Don't screw it up.
Thank you. Speaking of screwing their lives up, La'el Collins, recently suspended Dallas Cowboys player, initially for failing a drug test, it seemed. Now word comes out that, okay, possibly might have maybe failed the drug test, but the real reason for the suspension is because he tried to bribe the NFL drug test collector.
Oh, idiot. That's a dumbass move.
Who you been talking to? Ryan Braun? Seriously, dude. It's not going to work. Somebody's going to find it out. In this day and age, Dave said, cell phones. People are going to find out what you're up to. And it doesn't mean you get a vaccination for COVID. They're going to find out between computers and cell phones.
And you're going to talk to somebody, you're going to tweet or email or text. You're hosed.
Yeah, because you're a pro athlete. You're an egomaniac, probably. You're going to brag.
Exactly.
All right, the final dumbass. I feel bad about this, but she's a dumbass. She's a dumbass. Salt Lake City reporter Haley Crumbleholm. Say that 5 times fast, kids. Okay, she might not have been on the job more than a couple years in Salt Lake. But she does a kind of like a man on the street type segment where she goes out with her cameraman to interview people about what we were just talking about the NBA COVID situation, more specifically about requirements for proof of vaccination to go see Utah Jazz games. Okay. So she's trying to get a sampling of people on the street, asking them how they feel about the NBA policy, the attendance policy.
Yeah.
For Salt Lake to go see a Jazz game. She stops a young African-American to ask him about this. Does not recognize the fact it's actually a member of the Utah Jazz.
No!
Jordan Clarkson, who actually won the award for 6th Man of the Year. And she doesn't recognize him.
Wow.
Doesn't realize that he's part of the Utah Jazz. I think he tried to be as nice as possible, but I think at one point he did say, have you ever gone to see a fucking Jazz game?
I don't want to say this because it's cliche, but do you know who I am?
Yeah, this case, it might be warranted. In this case, it might be warranted. Nothing I hate more than NBA players except for members of the media.
Exactly.
That being said, I'm the maestro, Kevin Crane.
I'm the conquistador, Dave Height.
Check out the weekend edition. We've got fun stuff, including reviews of news of the world and looking back at all of our favorite shows for the week, including Titans
and what we do in the shadows. We'll see you next week.